Hi everyone, welcome to Coffee Break with Your Soul. My name is Maggie, and today I'm back with the amazing Clare Dimond. She's author of at least 6 books, or 7 actually. You will have to correct me, Claire. And she writes and speaks about the true nature of self and the true nature of reality. She does it through her books, like I said. She does it on her incredible podcast, which I am recommending straight away, Clare Dimond Podcast. And also, she runs all sorts of incredible courses on her membership site, which we're going to talk about probably a little bit at the end in case some of you might be interested in exploring that. But today we're talking about Clare's newest book, which is called Home, The Return to What You Already Are. And this is amazing book cover. And unfortunately, I have it on Kindle. I didn't know that the paperback was coming out. Otherwise, I would wait for it because I absolutely love the cover. Hi, Claire.
Hello, my love. Thank you for that lovely intro. That's super.
Yeah, I'm just so happy to have you back. I really have to say it that first of all, I am really grateful that you're out there in the world, talking about, like I said, the nature of self, the nature of reality, but in such a, humane way where this is one of the reasons why I love your podcast so much, because there's not so much talk about, the concepts, the sort of big words. That doesn't mean that they're not there. I'm just saying that to me, what I love about it the most is that we talk live, that people contact you, that people send you questions that really have to do with day-to-day life and what it is like to live from that true nature, when we're dealing with, families, relationships, and all sorts of stuff. But can you tell me a little bit about your book, how it came about?
Oh, thank you, Maggie. So lovely to be here with you. So Home, the book came from the course, really. In January and February this year, we did a course that was looking at, all the different ways that different teachers describe the truth. Because, I set up the course because, we've all, we've looked at a lot of different teachers' works and read a lot of books and seen a lot of videos, been on a lot of retreats and courses, and everyone seems to be pointing to the same thing, but often, like you're saying, using really different language, often sometimes really like saying that other teachers are wrong, like it's this is what it is, it's not that. And it seemed to me over the work that I've done over the years that I don't even know what, because it's not really a concept, different ways in, different pointings have different resonance for different people. And so through the course, we looked at several of these different ways. So we looked at consciousness and awareness, we looked at aliveness, we looked at intelligence, we looked at unconditional love, and we looked at peace as sort of fundamental truths of being. What are they? So what is each of those things, as much as we possibly can get to with words? What hides it? Like what are the layers of belief and conditioning that cover it over, and what allows those layers to be dissolved, and so that the lived experience of truth becomes more and more available. Because I think that's the interesting thing, like that's the key point, is that home is always what's happening. It's always like none of this would be possible without aliveness, without consciousness, without presence, without intelligence. it's always happening. So that's why the title of the book, it's where we are already. We've never left it. We never go anywhere. The only thing that sometimes happens is that the lived experience, so the moment to moment idea of what I am, idea of what the world is, of what other people are, becomes very separated out from the wholeness that we are. And so home was an attempt to draw the lived experience back into truth, really, which is a hard thing to do because it easily becomes a way of resisting and seeking, but to try and find a way that it could settle back to, so all of the everything that's not true in our daily lives could dissolve to become, so that everything aligns more and more with what never changes.
Yeah, I actually find it quite interesting that you can have so many different people, you know, whether they're teachers or like myself, just people who like to talk about these things, you know, and there are many paths that lead to home, right? And there are so many ways people talk about it, and I personally find it to be really a good thing, generally speaking, because you know there are simply certain teachers, like the people that read their books or listened, you know, to their YouTubes or whatever, that, for example, very simply their style or their way of talking about it just didn't resonate with me. So I was able to, you know, move around and, you know, and find that one or two or three people that actually spoke to me. So I think that it's great that we have this richness of different styles or different languages and different words to talk about this thing. Although I have to say, I also find it fascinating that, like you said in your book, that most of these people would agree as to the sort of fundamental things and yet disagree, you know, about the meaning of it, perhaps, or the way to arrive, so to speak, to you know, and so on. Then obviously then there is the whole conversation about how there is no path and no arrival and there's nobody here and, you know, nothing is going on, and then what's the point of talking about it? And so which must make it so confusing to people who are sort of freshly into this topic. But what I would love to talk about today a bit more is exactly that, is what home feels like to you. What does it mean that it's what is? What does it mean that it's that thing that is unchanging? What does it feel like to you, Claire, sort of in your life on a daily basis?
Well, for years and years and years, I was my whole lived experience of being was of something that was lacking and separate and vulnerable and needing protection, needing to defend itself. And so decades of you know, looking at different self-help routes and things to try to feel, I always knew, like, it always felt there was something missing, and so I was trying to, I guess, really find wholeness, find home through the idea of myself as separate, so that I had to try and solidify my, like, be okay at being me. Like, went on and on and on, and what I've come to realize is that is an unfulfillable quest. As long as the whole experience of being is really from an identified conscious mind, you know, nothing is questioned. all beliefs are taken as real, how reality appears is taken as real, how the self appears taken as real, and the attempt to find wholeness from that space of total belief, total unconscious consciousness in a way, impossible, will never happen. And so that's the fundamental irony of human life, it seems to me, is that the search for home, the search for wholeness, the search for peace is the thing that is hiding what we are already. That's the thing. You know, people come on my courses and it's pretty much guaranteed that whatever they're looking to get rid of, whatever they're trying to control, whatever emotions they want to, you know, fix in place, those are the areas that are going to go haywire in the course, because that whole belief is being challenged.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, but it doesn't look like it because we're looking for peace, we're looking to have the right experience. So that's the sort of, that was the search. And then through different teachers, you know, really different fantastic books and teachers, there was a sort of brick wall to that search in a way that was saying, no, it's not ever going to be found out there. There's something that is at the core of existence right now, which is all there is, really. Everything else is just belief, it's just projection, it's just concepts and ideas and meaning and stories. But there's something at the core that does not change. And so that was the shift, I think, ultimately, from the attempt to fix in place an idea to a mind realigning, I think, back to just what doesn't ever change, what is all constant. And so what that feels like, I think, in practice is, again, ironically, is more capacity to experience everything that before I would have steered away from and resisted and, you know, pushed away, because the thing that used to be under threat, my identity, you know, my sense of being, my idea of myself, now when that's being challenged and there's suffering, it's sometimes, of course, I go back into the old patterns, but increasingly now, knowing the thing that doesn't change is really what I am. When this identity gets challenged, it is quite exciting. And when experiences come in that we don't want to have, or when there's emotions that we don't want to have, it doesn't destabilize everything, because all of that is already transient. Like, that's the transient stuff that is never going to stay fixed, can never be controlled. And so there's just more, as I see it now, more and more, as I see it, the conscious mind, which before was engaged in an unquestioned defense of existence and being, and attempt to control, because that looked like survival. Now the conscious mind is more aligned to the awareness that we are, to the witnessing presence that is the only foundation, really, the only ultimate truth. And from that space of witnessing whatever arises and seeing reactions, hearing words being said, there's there's less and less to react to and defend, and just more and more information available for a learning system, which is what the mind body is. And so it's an interest, like it's just things I think become more transparent, that there's more it's less of a fight, less of a battle, and just more information of what the conditioning is, what, it's softer, and there's space for healing, real compassion for the experiences that have created this way of reacting. And it's all possible because there's the anchor, the benchmark is what never changes instead of what changes all the time. Like, we were looking for something fixed, and that's awareness, consciousness, intelligence, presence, love, peace. Don't change. That's always what we are.
Was this something that sort of realization of our true nature, was it something that sort of happened, or at least appears like it happened in one go? Or was it the result of, like you said, I'm actually going to steal your own metaphor, of peeling layers of that onion? Or was it a gradual process? Was it, what was it like to sort of come to that seeing of your true nature?
I think it was, there were a few stages along the way, I would say, and it's still, like, I see certain teachers who, from how they appear, how they talk, how they are with other people, it just seems to me that there would be nothing left. There's nothing left to be dissolved. There's nothing in the way, and that's not the case for me. There's been stages where a lot has fallen away, and a huge areas of fear and insecurity and shame and desperate need have just gone. And I think maybe one of the reasons why my course, like how you describe my course, is like they're sort of quite real, is because I'm sort of, I don't see any difference at all between me and the people on the courses, really. We're just all of us living life, and how reality appears can only be an external manifestation of what the conditioning of the beliefs, and through that there is indications all the time that are saying you're not separate, that there is there's a deeper truth than how this is appearing. And it's just, as I see it, that's really the privilege of human life, really, is like, we don't want to rush that even, or skip any stages. It's just such a privilege to have gone through those periods of total conviction, complete limitation, and where everything's sort of closed in on us, and the mind is just in this constant loop of self-blame or self-criticism, and to emerge from that through this process of which is really a revelation from our own projected reality. Like, it's a sort of self-serving system in a way, but it needs someone to tell us that, because otherwise the way reality appears just proves our beliefs are right. But when we're looking at it from the point of view, reality is a projection of our conditioning of separation, and that it's showing the way back to a lived experience of what we really are, then it's just so exciting. We're all in it together, really. There's seeing, and I love, we have our one-to-one conversations on the courses, and I think it's so great to hear people.
Oh, it's pure gold, Claire. Honestly,
It is, isn't it?
I mean, I have to say, as someone who has been listening to your podcast, and I've done your courses as well, and it's absolutely true. I think one of the sort of really one of the many magical things about your presence and your courses and your podcast is exactly what you just said. I think there's never there you never project the kind of, even though I know so many people see you as a teacher or a speaker or a teacher of non-duality. I mean, I don't know how you yourself feel about that that particular title, but what I know that I appreciate so much, and I know that other people also appreciate about you, is that there's never this projection of that somehow you are immune to human experience, or that you don't have your own fuck ups, or that sort of thing. Like, I love how, for example, you went on a date, and literally out of that date came entire blog posts and observations of how that true nature and the humanness played out at the same time in such a way. I mean, I've got chills just remembering because
So
it was
lovely.
incredible. Or something to do with your kids happening in school and dealing with other kids' parents and everything. We're talking real life, and you're bringing this up, and I really can sense, like, entire group, because you have a Facebook group as well, like everybody, like, has this collective sigh of relief. Oh my God, she's also still going through, she's still dealing with this stuff. And I think that this is, and again, look, I really what I'm seeing is that there seems to be this beautiful natural unfolding for every person, in terms of the peeling of this onion. Even what you've mentioned at the very beginning, when you talked about, oh, I read these things and I listened to those teachers, but there's always been this sense, or you've done courses and stuff, but there's always been this sense that something was not quite there, or something was still missing. See, I find that feeling that something missing as pure intelligence, just really like a beautiful, magical reminder. No, it's not that yet. No, it's not that yet. Keep going, right? And so this is why so many people, start with maybe some sort of personal growth stuff, or self-help stuff. And I personally I don't like to dismiss any of that. I really used to, because now that I know the truth, all of that doesn't matter. But it was really arrogant. Now I can see how, at least this is what it obviously appears to be. That journey has so many avenues, and sometimes a conversation with a random person can spark an insight, and who knows where that insight is going to take you. And while I love to talk about everybody's unique journeys, one of the reasons why I love to talk about it is not so that it's not my attempt to say, oh, this is how it works. Absolutely not. It's in fact the opposite. It's to show that our journeys are unique, and we should never compare ourselves to other people, because I've spoken to so many people. I know for myself, I've had a massive sort of awakening 10, 11 years ago. But ever since, even in the last year, there's been so much unfolding and deepening, which on like on steroids. It's like nothing seemed to have happened in that 10 years, but in the last year, I mean, literally, like just one thing after another that seemed to be sort of shifting and falling apart and collapsing, and including having a bit of a breakdown, and last year, and that sort of thing. So I think, like you said, it's such a privilege, to even be on this journey, and like you said, no rushing, no everything seems to be really happening exactly when it's meant to happen, right?
Yeah. And I love that, Maggie. And I love what you're saying about the return back to some of the self-help techniques and things like that, because I think what's really interesting now is that the sort of realization of truth is and that there is nowhere to get to, and that this is all there is, there's nothing else, is absolutely fundamental. That's everything. But then it still leaves a body mind that has been highly programmed, has been through deeply impactful experiences, perhaps trauma, and has behaviors, has ways of being, has reactions and fears and insecurities. And I think we can almost look at them as two separate things, really, because definitely, to a large extent, a realization of what's true will mean a lot falls away. But there might still be areas where really the body mind is engaged, continually fighting its own reflection. Really, it projects, and then it resists that projection, and so it seems to me that all the stuff that we rejected, like all, psychology, NLP, like meditation, all these things that had a bad name in a way because of, well, this is all there is, there's just awareness, there's just consciousness. Well, there's also a robot. There's also a robot that's being programmed, and all of these, so say like psychology, now I think comes into its own when, with the realization that there isn't a self-doer, there isn't a decider in the body mind, that it's all a program. Psychology, as I see it, takes off in that space now, because it doesn't revolve around the idea of me anymore. It's just a mind that's been programmed. It's just chemistry and biology and physics and mechanics, and that, I think, is really, really, really exciting, because the issue always with these things is that they'd sort of got lost a bit trying to secure the idea of me. But if we take that out, so the idea of me as separate, me as a doer, me as the decider, if that all just goes, and all that we're left with is truth and a body mind to understand better. Awesome. Now that is so exciting.
It is exciting, Claire, and I think, I have no definite sort of opinion on that, to be frank. To me, it's an ongoing exploration. There's no ultimate answers that can come from me, if anyone is kind of counting on them. But from where I'm at the moment, the way I see it is that, even when we take the sort of awakening stuff, true nature aside, and someone goes to a therapist or a psychologist and for the first time is able to, for example, recognize their conditioning.
Yes.
And then, so they're no longer in it. They're no longer the victim of the thing, but there is, right? So to me, I call those little awakened moments when when we're not in the thing anymore.
Yeah.
And so that in of itself, what it doesn't matter where that's going to take the person next. That in itself is incredibly useful. I
Yeah.
also recognize that with all the modalities, whether it's therapy or psychotherapy or coaching or astrology or enneagrams or whatever, if there is it's not so much about the modality, it's about the person that does the modality and how they view the reality. Because I think the direction and the view of things will be very different in one-on-one work, right? I think if one's going to be focusing on a separate fixed self, with personality, and that's it, and this is how things are, then there's nowhere to go from there. Whereas if a therapist realized their true nature and now he's using the tools, I mean, to me, this is like a win-win situation, don't you think?
I love that, Maggie. Yeah, because I think we can do, if we're the therapist and if we're seeing that client as fixed in a certain way, the whole interaction is going to be based around that, isn't it? And it just allows like the whole thing to get more and more concrete and fixed in place. But but I think it's why I love what you're saying, Maggie, and I think it's why the onus is on all of us to begin with ourselves first, isn't it? So any client that comes, any relative that we've got an issue with, our partner or whatever it is to really start with us and see what's our equivalent of that. What am I doing that is exactly the same? Because that way, that shift from just lost in the story and questioned reaction, the shift out of that is happening, and there's just space for real ownership and real understanding of a programmed system operating.
In particular, when it comes to other people, right? Like one of the things I was saying to you before we started that if there's one thing that appears to continuously take us out of home, is all kinds of interactions with other people, and them. You literally have an entire course that is entitled "Them," which is dedicated to other people, which I absolutely love. Because again, I think, and honestly, I have to tell you something which I probably haven't mentioned, but last year I had, well, a bit of a breakdown, let's put it this way. We're talking a floor situation, things very rarely floor me in life, but that was the horizontal floor situation. And, I can talk about it with a smile now, but obviously at the time, there was no reason to smile or to find a reason to smile. And I was really caught up, but I didn't sort of see that, obviously, at the time. I was really caught up in someone did something to me, right? And I started listening to your podcast. At the time, I won't lie, Claire, I was literally just listening to your voice, I think, because it was the only, it was like a sedative for me. I just love it because I love your voice, and I love listening to your podcast, and it really had very calming effect. So I can't even tell you whether this was I can't really say this was your words or what, but it was really like a sedative at the time. And eventually, I started sort of functioning in a way that I was able to actually listen. And you brought it up in one of your podcasts, where this whole idea well, two things. One was that the idea that someone does anything to me. One, like how even that belief, because I didn't see it as a belief, I saw it as a fact, right? How that belief creates so much suffering, that in of itself. And the other one was the realization that neither I nor that person or anyone else can act differently to the way they acted in a moment, or the way, right? So, you know, what it did to me, and I really want to underline something, that by saying someone did something to me, it doesn't mean, I don't mean it as denying the fact.
Yes, good.
Or downplaying the fact. Let's make it very clear. This is not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
So this was like a first thing, but it really forced me, Claire, to, right up till that point, I was so caught up on that flow. I really didn't see it at the time. For the first time in many, many years, I really saw myself as a victim. And also a noble victim, like poor me, who's the noble, saintly, who's been hurt.
Oh, Maggie, you're so lovely.
I know, and all of this image of that noble, saintly, like, hurt deeply by somebody's actions, started collapsing, and that, Claire, was even more painful because, I mean, now I was dealing with the pain of the situation, and now I was dealing with the pain of my own bullshit. That was just, thanks so much for that, Claire, by the way. I mean, there's almost like thank you and no thank you, like seriously. Because, I mean, literally, it was like, oh my God, it was one thing after another, Claire. It was literally recognizing similar behaviors, similar tactics, similar manipulations, the subtlest things in myself, and my ego was not happy. You know, my spiritual ego and my, you know, true, knowing the true self ego, even was not happy with that. It took me, it took me out of home in a big way, but it brought me back home, Claire. It brought me back home by facing the reality.
Oh, I love you more than ever. I love you more than ever.
And so this is what I want you to really talk a bit more about that, because one of the things that you're saying in your book is staying with the experience until the essential emptiness of them is revealed. I love this so much, because this is the closest to exactly what happened at the time. I stayed with it no matter how painful.
Yes.
You know, to see. So I was able to see through all the stories, through my own doings. I was essentially, Claire, hurt by the very same behaviors that I displayed toward other people. I just didn't see it because I was, you know, the noble one. So you know. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Darling.
Because I think it stands in the way of us.
I love it. I love it.
Seemingly,
I really think what you're describing is ultimate freedom, really. And you're really describing, like, how brilliantly you're describing how, in a way, how conversations and spirituality and, you know, I know all this stuff is really like it can be such a retreat, like it's a protection of the things that we cannot bear to look at. And so it's, my heart is just pinging out to you.
Mine too, and mine to you, with gratitude, honestly. And one of the reasons why I think it also, quote unquote, worked, Claire, is that it's one thing to speak about unconditional love, which I believe is at the core of our true nature, is unconditional love. And you the way you are with people, the way you created that space, you
Oh,
create that unconditional space for people to bring their shit in and to fall apart and to deal with their bullshit, and everything. And so
oh,
even though it wasn't maybe during the course, it was through your podcast at the time that you kind of let me know it was safe to go there.
yeah,
It was safe to yeah. So please, can you talk
yeah.
about why is it safe and why are we so afraid to face that?
Oh, so it really makes me cry, darling. That's everything. I think it's really ultimate freedom. It's an ultimate maturity of truth, isn't it? Like we're like it's everything. So okay. So other people doing stuff, and I love that you say we're not denying. People do horrible things,
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
and if for one moment this conversation is denying that, then it's we're all in enormous trouble, because the conditioning that we have means, like it's passed down from centuries, isn't it? That the anger and the fear and the insecurity that the behavior comes from. Yeah. So people do horrible things.
No
Given.
denying that, absolutely. And I don't ever want to be part of conversation about true nature where that fact is denied by saying, this is all an illusion, nothing exists,
Yeah.
and bypassing, the fact of the matter
Yes.
in that way. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Brilliant. So I love that you've emphasized that. And also I love what like when so these things that happen to us, when we're really still, the thing that is most resistant, and like you say, the aspect of ourself that sort of rallies into a protective identity, the noble victim is such a good phrase, isn't it? Really, the noble victim is like, so much in there. What we can start to see is how much of our behavior, our conditioning, our words, our beliefs, everything is actually creating, maintaining, contributing, fixing in place this whole situation. And it's a really fine line, that between denial and self-blame. But you've got it spot on. Like, oh my God, to hang out in that space, to like, how am I doing exactly the thing I'm most resisting here? The thing I'm most resentful of, how am I doing it to that person or to other people in the past? How are my words exactly the same? To hang out there without crossing into denial or crossing into another form of identification, which is, I'm so awful, I'm a terrible person, which is that's the same thing. That's just another way of stabilizing my idea of me in all of this. But where you were was a space of dissolution. Like that's the presence to the feelings, presence to the experience, ultimate accountability for what that experience is showing us about our own way of being, a healing, a unlearning of what's been learned, and then we emerge, as I see it, as in that humility, in that total humble openness. Everything is upgraded, as I see it. There's a complete reorganization of the conditioning that had kept us as a child, really, as a small victim that things happened to, that we were helpless, hopeless in this space, and and now there's a greater alignment of the whole mind body with pure potential, isn't it? With ultimate truth, ultimate presence, and like a whole side of the ego's fallen away, and we stop being the thing that we most hate in the world. It stops in us. And so centuries of conditioning ended in you during that time, Maggie. You and the flooring was necessary because it was so enormous what was happening, in a way.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to tell you that really this was only what turned out to be. It started as this, the flaw, the inquiry, but it was a string that continues of a deepening and shift on steroids, Claire. In terms of the feeling, the more grounded feeling of our true nature, and sort of like you talk about maturity, but what I love as we're talking homes, because to me that's the whole point of home. It's everything wants to come home, and that home is unconditional love. And because we no longer see ourselves as a separate self, but that vast, isness, so to speak. I personally, I'm sorry, I have real trouble. It almost seems like the deeper I seem to see it, the harder it is for me to actually convey it. Because honestly, I was saying to someone yesterday, genuinely, it feels like every time I try to sort of say it, comes out as a lie, or like that's bullshit. Like what? That just, it's like I can't even listen to myself. And but my point is that when you recognize that unconditional love that is at the core of your being, then everything can come home.
I think that you mentioned that metaphor of the onion, and I think that's quite useful here, because the conditioning of separation originated through the idea of survival, it seems to me. And so the baby is already born fully programmed to cry and to smile and to gaze into and to interact with the surroundings, to guarantee its inclusion within the people who are going to look after it as much as possible. And it seems to me that the very beginning of the idea of ourselves as separate is completely enmeshed in with survival. Because the moment there's an idea of a me and a them, our life depends on the them, and so that me, particularly if at that time things are precarious and risky and dangerous and insecure, and the adults around us are confused, and there's violence and fear, and that the nascent me is created in deep insecurity, and then from that point on, this sponge brain of the body mind is bringing in, I have to be like this, I have to act like that, I have to do this, this is what they want, belief after belief going all around this terrified sort of fragment, really. And I think what happens is the outer layers of the onion are the ones that are really, they're ready to go. there's nothing really holding them on. They're sort of very stale by now. You know, we've grown out of them. There's been enough evidence to the contrary. They're just ready to go. But as we get inner and inner and inner, there are things that are so vulnerable, so completely tied into the idea of life and death and survival, that I think it's easy for those not to be looked at, and for like you're saying, like we can sort of create careers, we can create family lives, we can create everything while those are still protected. I think it's like you're saying, the orientation now to experience whatever is there, no matter how uncomfortable, that's an orientation of truth, really, because that's saying, okay, whatever shows up, and who knows what will show up in reality, is going to reveal the layers of protection, the layers of resistance, and so in a way there's an openness that remains to see what's there to be seen. That I think the moment we think I'm realized, you know, I'm enlightened, I've seen that there's no self really, we close down that openness, really. We close down the ability to really be present to whatever healing remains.
To me, the realization of our true nature is actually almost like a beginning of really seeing things, and really not being willing to see things, but also looking at things with like even more curiosity.
Yes.
At those layers. I am the last person to think that the self-realization is some kind of arrival point. Oh my God, absolutely not. Like that's it. I've realized I arrived, that there's nothing else to do. Oh no. What seems to be what I'm observing in conversations with others is that there seems to be the sort of divide between, I think this is just the beginning, and the inquiry continues.
Yeah.
Even more so, with even more openness and even more curiosity.
Yeah, brilliant.
In which case, I don't even see the I don't see the possibility of bypassing, because stuff just comes to in your face. You know, there's actually because you know all the maneuvers that I talk about, all the tricks of the mind, all the psychological, spiritual maneuvers, they drop. So there's just this, you know, in your face, and you have to sort of face it.
In a way, the things that are right in our face are the things that there's readiness for.
Mm-hmm.
So like your breakdown happened because you were ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
You were completely ready for that whole aspect of being to be washed away.
Mm-hmm.
And it could only happen because of that readiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's things that are actually sort of here in the world, here in reality, that can't the fullness of them can't come in yet because of what's being protected.
Yeah.
So it's not I think maybe bypass isn't ever really consciously done. It's it's all that's available in that moment.
Yes. It makes sense. And also I think my question came from, you know, the hearing of so many people saying, you know, who had that realization, you know, there is no self, and this is all an illusion, and there's nothing to do and everything, and how this really is a way to bypass or not to meet what's arising, and almost like deny the reality of the moment or of a given situation. And so I suppose that this is where I've had recently many conversations as to how this still can happen. And yet I think the mind, there are conscious ways the mind does things, and there are things unconscious way it does it. And I don't think that just because somebody realized their true nature that it stops it from happening. It's just that I think there seems to be vigilance that I hope we have. I think it's so important to, in particular, even once the true nature was realized, to remain vigilant.
Yeah.
To those subtle things. And I think that's where a role of a teacher, someone like yourself, to have someone, and you mentioned that, probably halfway through our conversation, how important it is to actually have someone call you out.
Yeah.
And it may be painful, but it's so good when someone can spot the things that we might not be seeing in the moment.
Yes. Yeah. I think yes. So yeah, vigilance and I think how you described it in your breakdown episode is it's like ultimate humility, isn't it? It's sort of tuning into the suffering, and instead of automatically the suffering taking us into a ego space of me and versus them, it takes us into me and them. I am them, and it's humility without it getting lost in another identity of me as being rubbish and awful and useless and a failure. Just total humility that there is no me better than they are, and no me worse than they are, really. It's just we are all exactly the same. And there I think is curiosity rather than denial, isn't it? We don't need the denial to be safe when we're in that space.
Absolutely. Yeah. The openness and curiosity to look at things. And like you said, when that unconditional love to look at it and explore it is there, then it won't move into, like you said, the other story of, being ashamed, or,
Yes.
the guilt, the guilt doesn't come to it. And I think what I love about that sense of home when doing that is that, there's a space to recognize that things have been done. So again, nothing is being denied.
Yeah.
We're not saying that someone didn't hurt us or commit some kind of atrocity and that sort of thing. There's a space to say that, to acknowledge that. There's a space to even tell the story of how it hurt me and how it affected me at the time.
Sure.
Right? So
Of
without losing ourselves in that story, but to tell that story.
Yeah.
And then there's a space to explore what's true. All at the same time. It's just so beautifully, everything is just included. And the most amazing, I think, bit that makes such a difference is when that personal bit drops, and there is no blame, there is no shame. Everything is just met from that place, and everything is brought back home, I suppose.
Yeah, so lovely. That's so lovely, darling.
I was just looking for a way to, because I'm aware of time, I was looking at the way to conclude it.
Well, that is beautiful.
So I don't go off to some tangent again, or a whole new topic that we don't have time to talk about.
No, that's so, we should just all of us write out those last few words that you said, and that's it. That's everything.
Just before we go, can you tell us a little bit more about how your membership works and what is your member? Because I know that this is actually quite a new thing.
Yes, yeah, I just started it this year. So it's 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 a total bargain because people can sign up to be a member, and then they get every other month there's a new online course with different topics. So coming up in September we've got play, and then in November we've got a course on desire and want, need. And then in between, then there's a little members gift, like a extra webinar or a subliminal or a refresh recording or something. And yeah, so people can either sign up and join the courses on a 1-by-1 basis, or you can join the membership, and it's so much cheaper. It's a real it is a real bargain, even if I say so myself.
Yeah, and honestly, those courses are incredible. I love that every course is just literally one word in a title, and you know, it speaks to the particular topic around this one word, which is brilliant. And I really cannot recommend enough Claire's courses. And if you can't do the courses or the membership, then please listen to her podcast. It's a daily thing. I honestly don't know how you produce all this stuff, how you find time for it, and with such quality and everything. So anyway, thank you, Claire, for being in my life. Thank you for being out there in the world, doing your thing in your unique way. I think it's incredible. And I'm so happy that you were able to find time to come and talk to me today.
Oh, Maggie, that was such a treat. Thank you so much, darling. I love you so much.
I
Thank
love
you.
you too. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye, darling.